Welcome everyone to this third and final video for section 1 of the Getting Started series. Now, we've almost covered everything having to do with the vehicle. We've talked about the steering wheel and where to place our hands, but we haven't talked about what's around the steering wheel. So let's start by talking about the turn signal indicator. Now, this graphic here shows how you kind of wrap your index and middle finger around the top of the lever and then just flick your fingers down to apply the left turn signal. And to apply your right turn signal, you can use the same fingers, but this time you want to come up from underneath and flick your fingers up. Now, the outside lights for your vehicle are also placed on the turn signal lever. Now, since each vehicle manufacturer has their own unique setup, this is something best left for your driving coach to explain. But I do want to mention that a safe-minded driver always drives with their lights on full. We never play around with just driving with our running lights on. Nope, that is not good enough, because we always want the best odds possible of being seen by everyone else we're sharing the roads with. Now, on the right side of the steering wheel, you'll find the lever that controls the windshield wipers. And once again, there's many different setups for windshield wipers, so I'm going to leave this for your driving coach to explain as well. But what I will say is, you need to take the time to get to know how all the settings on your wipers work. You don't want to be in the middle of a road test and get thrown off your game because it started raining and now you have to play around with something you're unfamiliar with. And don't skimp on learning the intermittent speeds either. You don't want to be out on a road test with your wipers squeaking across a half-dry windshield, driving your examiner crazy. Now, depending on the time that you're doing your training, you may not come across rain too often. So a good practice that is kind to your vehicle is to have anyone, even your driving coach, spraying the front or back window as you work through the settings. And I would play with the wipers fairly often until it feels very natural working all of the settings on the front and back wiper, if you have one. Now let's move on and talk about the heating and ventilation system. Now, once again, each car manufacturer has their own look, which you can see in these examples, but the overall system pretty much works the same. So, going by the graphics, we'll start at the top row where you have the airflow selectors. And the first symbol on the left shows the airflow is directed at the head only, which is basically the top part of your body. And next, you'll have the airflow directed towards your head and feet. And finally, the airflow is directed to your feet only. Now, even though we call this the heating system, it will blow either hot or cold air, depending on your choice. So in this example here, it shows the system is turned to the hottest setting, which is the end of the red zone. But it also turns in the opposite direction, which is colored blue for cool air. And then you have all the differing degrees of temperature in between these two settings. Now, if your car has air conditioning, it usually runs on a separate button that you will push to turn on and off. But be aware, running your air conditioning will affect your gas mileage. But I have no idea to what degree, since every vehicle is different. But I just wanted to mention this in case you ever find yourself running low on gas. If that's the case, you'll want to turn your air conditioning off until you've filled up again. And now on the bottom row, you have the defrost system. Now, the first setting on the left actually splits between defrosting your front windshield as well as providing airflow from the heating system to your head and feet area. Now, the next setting is to defrost your front windshield only, so the air blasting your windshield will be much stronger. And you might have noticed this symbol looks a lot like the front windshield. And then the third symbol shows the defrost setting with a square box. And the reason it looks different is because this one is for the back window. Now, they chose to use a square box so that you don't mistake it for the front windshield defroster, and it's often found as a separate button somewhere near the main heating system. Now, it's also important to know that the back defroster usually turns off once the window has defrosted, and it usually turns off when the vehicle turns off as well, which your front defroster does not. It turns on again with the vehicle. So because of this, it's important to remember to keep an eye on your back window, and as soon as you notice it's starting to fog up, turn it back on. So here we have the two air intake selectors. Now the one on the left is for fresh air coming from outside the vehicle, and the one on the right is for the air inside the vehicle to just recirculate itself. So in this graphic, you can see that the fresh outside air is activated. Now, this is a good choice when the temperature is a bit cool outside and you're driving long distance. The cool air will help keep the air inside your vehicle nice and fresh, which will help with your concentration. And you'll also want to use the outside air setting on hot summer days to help get the hot, stale air out of your vehicle. Just start your vehicle, open the windows, and crank the fan. Now, choosing the inside air recirculating itself is a good choice when you're doing things like trying to keep your windows defrosted. This way, all that warm air inside your vehicle helps with the process. And it also works in the opposite way. If you're using your air conditioner, once you've cleared out all that hot air, switch to this setting so that the cool air inside your vehicle will help your air conditioner not have to work so hard. Now, here's a crude diagram showing the typical locations where vents are placed in the front area of the vehicle. So these three orange vents are for the defrosting system, where the two vents on each side are very important for keeping the side windows defrosted. So if you notice your side windows keep fogging up, check the directions of these vents. And then the large middle one up front is for the front windshield. Now, most vents are adjustable in two ways. The gripper in the middle helps you push the vent to direct the air where you want it to go. And the slider button on the bottom determines how much air can get through. And it will even close the vent off completely if that's what you wish. Okay, we're done with the heating system, but somewhere close to the heating system, you'll find the hazard light button. Now, make sure you're comfortable finding this button, since you'll probably be asked to apply your hazard lights before your road test begins. Okay, now let's talk about this little button here, shown by the yellow arrow. So this is a trip odometer reset button, and it's always found somewhere close to your speedometer on the dash. And it's used to keep track of distance. So if you want to know how far it is from one area to another, or if you'd like to know how far you can get on a tank of gas, those kinds of things, well, this little button is how you do that. Okay, we're almost there. Just one little thing left to talk about. And the final subject is, drumroll please, the flippin' fuel flap. Now, sometimes this fuel flap locks and sometimes it doesn't. If it locks, you're looking for a button that has this symbol on it. Sometimes it's on the floor close to the driver's seat next to the door, and sometimes it's on the dash or even in the console between the seats. And sometimes the flap itself has this weird looking area here, which is actually there to place your gas cap on while you fill up, because some caps are connected to the vehicle and some are not. And when you screw the lid of the gas tank back in place, you want to hear a few click-a-click clicking sounds, which signifies that the lid is where it needs to be. So our car is full, we know how it all works, and we have nothing but road ahead of us. So way to go us! We are at the end of section 1 of the Getting Started series, which I hope you found at least a fair bit interesting and useful to know. And if you have some time, leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you think. And if you have a lot to say, you can always email me through steps123utd@gmail.com. And when you're ready for more student instructional videos, I'll see you over at section 2 in this series, where we talk about everything involved with starting and stopping an automatic transmission vehicle and then a manual transmission vehicle. Now, before I say goodbye, I'd just like to remind you that by taking the time to like this video and subscribing to this channel, it will go a long way to help keep this program affordable for all. So now I will say goodbye, and I hope that you have a lot of fun playing with all those buttons and things in your vehicle. And I'll see you when I see you. Take care.